Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mediation and Beyond YouTube channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm super delighted today to have Vicki Larson. She's based out of San Francisco. She's an award-winning journalist, lifestyle editor, columnist, and writer at the Marin Independent Journal, Marin being one of the all-time favorite places, really. If you haven't been, you should go. And she's the co-author of the book, The New I Do, Reshaping Marriage for Skeptics, Realists and Rebels. It's a fantastic book if you haven't read that. Her writings can be found in the New York Times, The Guardian, The Washington Post, Aeon, Quartz, HuffPost, and Medium, among other places, obviously all the top places that you can see. She's the mother of 2 young men, and she's working on a new book on changing the narrative about older women, which I probably should be interviewed for, Vicki, if you didn't want to interview somebody. But so, Vicki, thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's early out there and we're a little bit of a time difference, but thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I wanted to go ahead and ask you, well, one, your book, The New I Do, I wanted to know why you even had the thought to even write that. Like, of all the titles of books, of all the topics and genres you can write on, why marriage?
Well, first of all, Colleen, thank you so much for having me. It's really, I feel very honored and humbled. So the book came about because my co-author, Susan Pease-Gadwa, and I both had very different experiences of marriage and non-marriage. Susan was supposed to get married early in her 20s, was engaged, and changed her mind. It wasn't right. And then she was single for a very long time and got married for the first time in her 40s. And everyone was like, what's wrong with you? There must be something wrong with you. Why aren't you married? I, on the other hand, have been married and divorced twice. So I heard, what's wrong with you? Why can't you stay married? And so there was both a shame and a judgment about both of our experiences. Susan is a therapist, and she kind of worked with people who were divorcing, and she heard people over and over saying, I feel so like a failure. And I was seen as a failure because my marriages didn't last. And when we connected on the HuffPost divorce section, and she has a practice here in Marin, we realized that we both had a similar experience from different perspectives. She had this idea of a book, and she asked me to join her, and then that's really how it happened. And I wrote a piece about divorce in the New York Times. The editor there really liked me. She said she had a book agent. Would you mind if I sent her your idea? And that's how it all happened. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm divorced twice as well. And there is a lot of shame, not only around round 1, but
Mm-hmm.
when you go round 2, it kicks it up a whole different level.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you don't really even, it's almost like the if you're divorced twice club, you don't really even talk about that. I'm divorced. But it's like you don't, but I've met a lot of women and men who don't want to say they're divorced twice because there's that stigma. Never mind divorced once stigma, divorced twice stigma. What's really wrong with you?
Right. And, here it is 2020, and we've had no fault divorce for many years, more than 40 years. And there still is a stigma around being divorced. And what Susan and I really wanted to do was take that and confront it and have people think, why is longevity the only way to determine a marriage is successful? In other words, for a marriage to be successful, someone has to die. You have made it until death. Yay! That's a successful marriage. Even if that marriage was full of contempt, if it was maybe abusive, if it was unhappy, loveless, sexless, somehow we think if you've made it all those years and someone died, that's a successful marriage. And we thought there has to be another way to determine what would make a successful marriage. And that's where the book kind of goes.
And so would you say, if people were listening, would you say there's a definition of what creates a successful marriage?
Yes, and what it is that the couple within the marriage has matched expectations. That is what we learned. And there is no right or wrong way to be married. You get a marriage license and maybe you have a big party, or maybe you just have a wedding in front of the judge. And then you are really free to set up what you want that marriage to look like. And it should be based on the couple's values and goals, you know, not just longevity. Longevity doesn't tell us anything. If you if marriage is for you, you want to have children and it's all about parenting, then you set that up as, you know, how that marriage will be. That will be successful in the raising of your children, or whatever your goals and desires are. But what we learned more than anything was a successful marriage is one in which the two couples agree to what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it.
So a successful marriage, then, if you take it from that premise, really could be a divorce. Because, I mean, you know what I'm saying? A successful marriage can be two people achieving the goals that they both feel they achieved, and they can't do any more with one another.
Exactly. And that is why we are
really beautiful.
we really are big believers in the idea of a term limited marital contract that you either renew or change depending on what you want. So one of our models is a starter marriage, right? So this should be a marriage of a short duration, no children, where you're kind of setting up what you want and how you want it to be. Then let's say you do decide to have children, then you should change it to a parenting marriage. And maybe your goal is just to raise a child to age 18 and launch them off into their world. And after that, you may decide, you know, we did our job. We did our job, and now we want other things. And that should be totally okay. It's because you will have set up what you want, and then you would set up also how you will dissolve the marriage, and there won't be fighting, and there won't be a need for divorce attorneys, I'm sorry. Or, well, I mean, maybe to sign paperwork, but it won't be angry and contempt.
I'll just pause you right now. Why don't you hop in a different room?
Okay, let me go do that.
Great.
And
Alrighty. Thanks, Vicki. We're back.
Yeah, so, you know, if you just want to focus on children, then that really could and should be the goal of that marriage. And actually, you should pick a partner who's going to be the best mother or father, or two fathers or two mothers, whatever.
Yep.
To raise children together, and not the love of your life, not your soulmate. It's just a whole different way of approaching what you want. If focusing on children is indeed the purpose of that marriage.
And that's a really good point too, Vicki, is that it doesn't matter the gender of the marriage. It doesn't matter if it's a gay couple, a lesbian couple. It doesn't even matter the makeup of what that union is. I mean, it's really how this flows with your book is really, it doesn't make any difference.
That's absolutely right. And, you know, studies show that as long as children have stability and their parents love them, it doesn't matter if it's a single parent or a same-sex couple, or even in poly relationships where there's more people to love the children.
Yes.
Children need stability. They need stability and they need love. They don't necessarily need their parents to love each other, although that's nice, but they certainly need to have their parents love them and not have a lot of conflict. And so, you know, if you're trying to marry someone who is your soulmate and the best friend and all of these things, there can be conflict because you're wanting a lot of things from that one person. If you are just wanting someone who's going to be the best parent for your child.
Yeah, when I have had couples come in, whether they're doing their divorce or when I had my therapy practice, it was really about, they'll say, well, I'll do anything for my children. And I'm like, then don't argue. Like, right? Because really that's the bottom line, is what the children would love. Please don't argue. Just get along. You don't have to, like you say, be in love with each other and make it this union that lasts forever. But for goodness sakes, at the very least, be cordial and kind.
That really is like a very low bar, really. So, and also, talking about how people can set up their marriage and what they want, getting a marriage license doesn't mean you have to live together. It doesn't mean you have to be monogamous, as long as you're consensually non-monogamous. So one of our marital models is called the Live Apart Together, this is not a new model. And actually, none of the models in our book are new. They are already happening, and people are making it work for them. My mom left my dad for about 10 years. She left New York and moved to Florida, got herself a condo, got herself a job. They didn't divorce. My dad would come down once a month. They would have a very nice long weekend. And then they did that for many years. And then when he retired and his mom died, he came down to Florida. And I think that's why they lasted 61 years. They gave each other space. And a lot of people say, well, why even get married if you're not going to live together? And I'm like, well, maybe you have careers in different cities or different countries, or maybe you have such different lifestyles that it's easier to not live together and try and force it. When you force it, that's conflict. And studies show that people who live apart are as devoted and as romantic and as faithful as people who, in some cases, even more so, because they have to work harder at the relationship. There's one thing about living together, and what we're especially seeing now during the lockdown, when so many people are 24/7 and they're realizing, I didn't realize my spouse was a circle back guy, or whatever, all these being in their careers because they used to go off to an office or something. There's a lot of conflict and unhappiness. There's no space. There's no breathing room. And like Esther Perel, the famous therapist, says, eroticism needs space. It needs missing. It needs longing. And so you get to do that if you live apart. And so you have to work harder. You can't be complacent in the marriage or in the relationship. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, to have to work harder at the relationship.
Yeah, people say, well, I don't want a long distance relationship because that's a lot of work. And I'm like, it's a lot of work no matter what distance. Like, and so but it's good work if you really want to make it work. I always say, anything that you want badly enough, you'll make work.
That's absolutely true. And if you think of work as hard, then that puts in a very negative thing. If you think of work as, I am wanting to connect with my partner, I want to continue to make this relationship or this marriage be a happy, healthy one, and I love my partner and I want to do this for my partner and I want my partner to do this for me, you can call that work or you can call it whatever you want. It's essential if you want to stay together happily.
Yes.
And absolutely. I think that's the goal for most people, is to stay together happily.
But I was having a conversation the other day with somebody about that concept of happiness. It's like, oh, I want to be happy, but happy doesn't necessarily mean things are easy. And happy can just mean peace and calm. It doesn't have to be like full of joy and enthusiasm all the time. But it can be calming.
Yes. I'm sorry, I lost your voice there for a little bit.
Oh, okay. It's okay. I think we're just having a little technological that we have no control over issues. So going on from, if you're doing the parenting marriage, you go on to like living alone together. What is that? Can you discuss that? And the distance makes the heart grow fonder, kind of?
Yeah. So, I mean, that works for a lot of people who are, independent or just need to have a space, or for career-wise that they, or even, you know, you don't even have to live in separate houses. You can have separate parts of the house, you know, like back in, you know, the days of royalty, they would have his chambers or her chambers. I think actually the Trumps don't sleep alone. And a lot of people get weird about that. It's like, oh my God, they're not sleeping alone, and they're not having, you know, they're not doing what they should be doing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, what if someone snores and, you know, you can't get a good night's sleep? Now they talk about things like sleep divorce, which is a ridiculous name, but it is acknowledging that, you know, sometimes you just need to be apart to come together in a good, happy, and healthy way.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. If you both are in agreement, then
Yes.
it's not a problem. It's when you're not in agreement. But if you have two people that like, hey, we love to come together for intimacy, for
Yes.
either holding or sexual, and we want to sleep separately, like that does that.
Right.
That's their, if that works for that couple, good for them.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But it does go back to that kind of mutual decision making, and that's where I think people get married, and none of us, I know when I got married, either time, I think I'd learned that I ever sat down and had these kinds of questions, or this dialogue about expectations.
Yes. And, you know, that is really kind of the whole point of our book is, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow made the idea of conscious uncoupling popular. She didn't create that term, but
Right.
I actually really do like it because it's parting with kindness. This is someone you loved at some point. So not every breakup has to be disastrous. So what we wanted to do was to get people to consciously couple. Why are we getting married? You know, what do we want out of this marriage? What did we like about being single that we would like to bring into this marriage? Mm-hmm. And so we have a whole bunch of questions for people to ask themselves to really think about why they want to get married. We worked with one engaged couple. We gave them kind of a list of all the reasons why they want to get married, and we asked them to check off. And they had a lot of shared thing, but the man had sex. And so when they were reading it out loud, and he said to have sex, she said, "What? To have sex?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And it's funny because most people do have an idea that they will have sex if they're getting married, but it just was, that was not on her list. And so it was kind of a thing like, all right, we need to really talk about that because if one person is expecting to have sex and the other doesn't even see that as a reason to get married, then that's a conversation. And what we really want to do is have couples have conversations, have a conversation about monogamy. Are we choosing it? Are we good at it? Do we like it? Have we ever been bad at it? Do we think that we could be monogamous forever? And also the thing about marriages is that they can change. You know, you can start as a starter marriage and move into a parenting marriage, and maybe you go into a live apart together marriage, or maybe you decide that you're going to have an open marriage. You still want to have a connection with that person, but the form of the marriage is going to change because your needs are different at that particular time. And that is a good thing, really, we think.
Yeah, no, one of the questions I also would ask, I think is important for couples, and I've told my daughter, you know, my daughter's been in a long-term relationship, but is if, and it doesn't mean you have to end the relationship, but if you have one partner who says, yes, I'll go to a therapist, or I'll go to a marriage coach or whatever, and then you have the other one that says, I'll never step foot in an office, I would want to know, I think that's a really important dialogue to have, because there are some people, like I've seen women, I'm like, well, could you bring your partner in? It's like, they will absolutely not come in. And I've seen it time and time again where I think you need to know that before you step in.
Oh, absolutely. And I have friends whose partners did not want to go to therapy, and they got divorced. And maybe it was a marriage that could have been salvaged, maybe not. But the thing is, you do want to, again, have those conversations with your partner who you are potentially marrying for life. I mean, that's still, most people don't marry with the idea that they are going to divorce. They marry because they're choosing someone they love and they want to be with. And so you really do want to probe those things. Why wouldn't you want, at what point would we go to a therapist? Oh, I'm not going to go to a therapist. Oh, why wouldn't you go to a therapist? And that's, that gets you starting talking about things that you may want to know before you commit in a marriage, which, as you know, is a legal financial arrangement, and it can be very hard to get out of. And so we also are big believers in prenups, because states have one for you. And if you don't want the state's prenup, create your own. And the prenup, well, actually, we like to call it as a contract, a marital contract, is more than just financial stuff. It's agreeing to what it is that you're doing in the marriage and how you're going to hold yourself and each other accountable, so that you have a baseline. So when things go wrong, you can say, look, we agreed to this. This is not happening. What's happening?
Is monogamy something that you can put in a prenup? Like that you agreed to a monogamous relationship? Not that you're a legal expert, I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, I think I've read of some celebrities who have prenups that if there's cheating, there's X number of months. I mean, I guess that you are able to legally do that. And, again, these contracts don't necessarily have to be legal contracts. They should really be like agreements between the two people. And of course, people can change their minds and ignore things all the time, and they do. But at least you are having some hard conversations about things, and you're at least coming to agreements that hopefully people will stick to. And there are no guarantees in life, and even following any of the things in this book won't guarantee anything. What it comes down to is the two people in the marriage. Are they trustworthy? Are they going to keep their word? And if they're not trustworthy and not going to keep their word, because maybe they have a history, that maybe you want to reconsider whether you're going to commit to that person or not. So
right, knowledge is power, right? And someone's history, how they've treated you really matters, right? And you take that, you factor that in, and whether or not that's going to change, or you can kind of work with it. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to kick somebody to the curb, but so the one thing I know that most people talk about with relationships is the money factor. And you can't overlook the financial piece, right? I mean, it is a big part of coming together and how people are with their money. I think people don't even understand their own relationships with money. Never mind, they're typically ready to point the finger at their partner's relationship with money than looking at their self relationship with money. But is that something you came across as well?
Well, money is a huge, huge part of marriage, relationships, and marriage.
Do we have you back there? Are you back, Vicki?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. People fight about money all the time, and they don't really always talk about their relationship with money, and whether one is a saver and one is a spender, and that's really, really incredibly important. And also for women, many of whom drop back in work to raise children, they often lose a lot of financial power, and that is something that couples really need to talk about. I believe that Beyonce had in her prenup with Jay-Z that for every child she's getting like $5 million.
Yes, that's true.
Because because she's going to be losing time from her career. And that may sound crazy, but I will say it's not. If whoever, it could be the man, it could be anyone who stays at home or cuts back on work to give not only for children, but maybe for elderly parents. Couples need to talk about that too. That needs to be a conversation, because we're seeing this right now in the pandemic, where, for parents who are lucky enough to work from home, not everyone is, it's the women who are cutting back on work. And I will tell you that has lifelong financial ramifications. Yep. And you need to get that in writing. If this happens, how does that person get compensated for? And agree to that, because it matters. It matters hugely, because you just don't know what's going to happen. You could end up divorced. You could end up widowed, and you need to really talk about money. And that's hard for people. It's hard for people. It seems greedy and it seems all wrong, but it is essential to have conversations about money.
Well, I always hear from women, well, I want to be fair and I don't want to take too much. And I'm like, you're not taking.
It's yours.
It's a shared monies. They're both your monies. All of it in the pool, everything. It's in the pool. It's everybody.
I know. And it drove me crazy when Mackenzie Bezos and Jeff Bezos got divorced, and everyone was saying she was walking away with his money and now is the richest woman in the world. I'm like, she was always the richest woman in the world, and it's not his money. It's their money.
It's their money. It is their money. And when she's not working and he's working, that the only reason he's not home is because she's taking care of everything. So
that is what people need to realize. It is an arrangement that is agreed to, and it gets compensated. It should be compensated.
Well, I think what most women don't recognize, this is always a shocker when I'm going over this, doing a divorce mediation, she's not paying into her Social Security.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, I'm not. And the husband will be like, she's not. Like, there's no thought behind that. Right? There's a lot we don't know as women. And as men too, but I think there's more as women. I think there's still some of that. He takes care of the money, I take care of the kids, and nothing wrong with that as long as you both know what you're doing.
I interviewed a local filmmaker who was working on a movie right before COVID hit on women and money, and one of the women one of the financial people she had interviewed said that even now, so many women have no idea what their partner makes. No idea. I'm like, are you kidding me? In 2020, you need to know. Yeah.
The area where my office is and whatnot, it's, very educated, wealthy, kind of like an East Coast Marin, right? But there's women who've gone to Berkeley, master's degrees, they're staying home with their children because they've chosen to, but they don't know what their partner makes. And I still have a little bit of a hard time with that, because it's just part of knowing what your bills are, what your income is. It's like, just know it all. You don't have to be responsible to take care of it, but be aware.
And that kind of leads into one of our marital models, which is the safety marriage. So in the recession, they called it the man session because a lot of men lost their jobs, but a lot of women did too. And there was one woman who we have in our book who earned a little bit of fame because she had she needed a health plan for some medicine to keep her alive. And so she put out an ad that she would marry someone for the health insurance. And So she never did get married, but she heard from a lot of military men who were like, yes, because married military men make more money. So, so she was
Right,
looking.
then, excuse me, they make more money than the women?
No, than
Oh,
unmarried men.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, what she was looking for was a safety marriage. And, you know, some women who are considered gold diggers by men because they're looking for a man who will support them and this and that. We're not promoting gold digging, that's for sure. However, you see sometimes marriages that seem that they don't make sense, like the late Hugh Hefner and Crystal. She was, I think, 60 years younger.
Yeah.
And everyone is like, well, that's not a real marriage. She's just gold digging. Our feeling was, no, that marriage, they knew exactly what they were doing. That was their arrangement.
Yep.
He was going to take care of her, and she was going to give him what he wanted. And that is much more transparent than people who marry and maybe, you know, one spouse thinks, well, you know, when we get married, I'll drop back from work or this and that, but I'm not going to tell my fiance that that's my goal. There's nothing wrong for marrying for safety and money as long as you are transparent and you're both agreeing this is what's happening. Now, it is true that there's a power imbalance with that, and that is something that needs to be addressed. But if it is addressed, and that is the agreement between the man and the woman, or the two people, it doesn't have to be man and woman, then there's nothing wrong with a marriage that is based on that kind of security. If that's what they both want. Again, matched expectations leads to the relationship you want.
Well, I always find it interesting that, like, when you have like a Hugh Hefner with the younger woman or whatever, they'll say she married him for his money, but
Right.
we never hear, well, he married her for, you know. And I think true, they've agreed on it, but we never hear, well, why did he marry her? It's always she married him for, like, she controlled the whole thing. He had nothing to do with it. He didn't know what he was like. Yep. And we never.
He was one-sided.
It's not one-sided. I think in a lot of those situations, the man knows what he wants, she knows what she wants. But I will agree with you about the financial inequity, and so there's a little bit of a power play there. But
yeah, there can be. And again, we're not promoting that people go and do that. However, it's as valid a marriage as any other, as long as that's what the couple wants. And you know, right now there's a lot of people, because health insurance is tied to employment. There are a lot of people who are not having health insurance at a time when we really need it. And I would imagine that there are some people who will be getting married so that they can care for another person and get them on their health plan. So, yeah.
And there's people who aren't getting divorced because they need the health insurance, or they've taken such a big hit in the market. Like I had a woman come in the other day and she goes, I can't get divorced now because our stock just, like, I'll get nothing.
Right.
So,
yes.
You know, trying to figure out how to stay in a space, like what you're saying, you can stay in a marriage for a lot of different reasons. And,
yes.
And hopefully, you know, they both get why they're staying in it, you know, but sometimes it's not that transparent, but
no.
Yeah. So let me ask you about your new book. You're switching gears from talking about marriage to the and marriage and relationships. I always say too, you're marrying whatever you came from. Like, you're not just marrying that person, you're marrying what they came from in their childhoods, which really is the narrative. You're talking, I hear about a narrative about what older women tell themselves.
Yeah, well, it's a hoped for book. Let's just say that the book proposal right now that is hopefully floating out and about. It's an unusual time for publishers right now and would-be authors. So we will see. But I am an older woman. I never used to tell my age.
There you are. I hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening here.
That's okay.
So my friends have told me lovingly that I can no longer call myself a middle-aged woman. I am now, I guess, elder. I just turned 64.
Looking good, Vicki.
Thank you, and thank you, and I feel great. And that is what I noticed, is that you hear so many people say, "Oh, once a woman turns this, she's, she's dried up, she's all this and that." And I'm like, no, I think women, when they hit midlife and older, are best and are most vibrant. And I really want to change the narrative of that. And I want to help women to choose their most authentic life. And I hope that that helps younger women too, to see that you don't have to follow some script, to live your life. It wasn't until I got divorced at age 48 for the second time that I ever stopped to ask myself, well, what do you really want? I just went on the script that was, I guess, expected of people. You go to college, you get a job, you fall in love, you get married, you have children in the house, the picket fence, the minivan, all of that stuff. And I followed that along. And when I got divorced at midlife, I had 2 kids already. I had a minivan, sadly. I had a career. I had a home. And what did I want now? I wasn't going to look for a romantic partner for all of that stuff. I had that stuff. Right. So I need a romantic partner, and if I needed a man, what did I need him for? Well, it wasn't for that, and I didn't want to be supported by somebody. And so I want women to ask themselves that at all ages, and the book will help, just like the New I Do will help, is guiding people to figure out what they want in their marriage. This I see as a way to help women figure out what they want in their life, and offer tools to make it happen. It's not an advice book. It's not a self-help book. It's a book to help women come to their own decisions, of it doesn't have to look a certain way. And you're not dried up. There are many, if you're interested in a romantic partner, there are many men who value women of their own age. And women are sold this thing that you'll never find anyone, or you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm like, you're wrong. We actually not only can, but we are.
Yes. And I love that whole concept. I'm never a big fan of like midlife crisis or middle age, or you're just growing. Like you're just growing. It's not like you're aging, you're growing. And I think it doesn't matter. Like I have the very interesting conversations with my daughter who's 28, but I'm having conversations with my daughter who's 28, and I'm also having conversations with my daughter, with my friends about the same topics.
Yeah. 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 Right. I mean, we're talking about this. We're talking about it, and we're not seeing ourselves as invisible and irrelevant. We are not. And so, and I don't want to say this is a book to empower women, because I hate that. Women have power. We have power. And I want women to realize that they have power. And I want everyone to realize we have power. Support it, encourage it, acknowledge it. We don't need to be empowered. We have power. Just respect it.
I was listening to a show the other day with the author, I forget his singer, I think he wrote The Untethered Soul. It's a great book. So, yeah. But there's a quote in his book, and this isn't verbatim, but roughly it says, this person's asking God, they find out they're going to die. They have like a week left, and they're going to die tomorrow. And the person says, well, I'd like just one more week. But then God says, well, I gave you all day yesterday. I gave you 365 other days and 40 other years. What did you do with your time? And so for me, it just hits you that it doesn't matter your age, it's what you're doing with your time, right? And how we're perceiving ourselves. And are we really putting ourselves out there in a way that that we want to, that honors us? Right?
Exactly. And the only way to do that is to sit yourself down and go, what is it that I want right now? It may not be for forever, but what do I want to do right now? What do I want my life to look like? What would be my most authentic person? And how do I get that? How do I make that happen? What do I need to do? And to realize, again, there is no right or wrong way to live your life. And there's a lot of pressure from society to fit into a mold. And yes, exactly. You don't have to. Yes, you don't have to. And, you know, choosing a path of your own can be scary. You know, when you have so many options of how you want to live, it can be overwhelming. It's like the book, The Paradox of Choice. It makes it scary and hard. And it's easy if you just have 2 ways of being or 3 ways. Okay, I can do one of those. But again, not to fear something that's hard just because it seems hard, if that is what you really want. Because believe me, you're not the only person doing that. There are other people who will be forging a different life that may be similar, but also is brave and bold and honest and authentic.
I wish it was already here because I want to talk about that book too.
Well, I hope that it happens, and I hope that when it comes out that we can talk again.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. There's so much, you know, so many nuggets in speaking with you that, and it's nice to meet like-minded people that you can have these really authentic and real conversations with. And, you know, I appreciate all your knowledge, and your wit and your wisdom around marriage, and I look forward to when that happens, your next book out there. But you continue to do your writings in you know, online newspapers, as I call them, right? You're doing a lot of work, right?
I have a regular daily job, which I probably need to get back to very shortly.
Yep. Yeah.
And I do freelance writing. But a lot of, I had a blog for a very long time, and I've kind of stopped writing on the blog, and I've shifted over to Medium, which is a much bigger platform. And I usually write at least once a week, and it is often based on something that's happening in the culture right now, or a book that I have read. So just yesterday, I posted something on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC's response to being called to curses by Representative Yoho. And his defense was, I have been married for 45 years, as if marriage makes you a good person. So I explored that.
And that's over on Medium?
That's on Medium, yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, again, going back to marriage as defining somebody as successful or not successful, right? I mean, we use it as a defining success label or failure label, which it's not.
Yes, exactly.
Well, good. Now, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, can you, and I'll put it in my details, but what's the best way to get in touch with you if they wanted some information or to go look at your, you know, your work?
Yeah, well, I am very active on Twitter.
Okay.
Which is at OMG Chronicles, and I am also on Facebook, also OMG Chronicles, and on Instagram, OMG Chronicles, and I also have a Gmail account, omgchronicles@gmail.com, and you can also contact me through Medium. So any of those ways, I'm.
Okay.
I have a love-hate with social media, but right now in the world, it seems to connect people, and there's a lot of good that can come from it, and I would love to hear from anybody about anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I will post that in the details, how to get a hold of Vicki Larson. And Vicki, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy with a lot of things to do, but I really enjoyed my time with you. And I might look you up again in the future. Well, and so continue happy writing. And if you do get another book out there in the future, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you, Colleen. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and this time and this wonderful conversation, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too. And we'll talk again. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.